90.7 KPFK, Los Angeles.
Russia, if you're listening.
Talk show, random, political, outrageous, philosophical, analytical, passionate, sunsets, roadkill cooking tips, open-minded, swordsman, bent, resolute, chocolate, bushwhacker, belt buckles, investigative, companion, fearless. Call in, piercing the cloud of mainstream entertainment. It's the Cary Harrison Files.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files. Welcome. Glad to have you aboard. If you're live streaming anywhere on the planet, happy to have you here. Often that age group skews younger, so it's cool to have you in the fold since a lot of you are stuck on this planet for 80 more years. Yes, climate change is real. Yes, gravity is real. Yes, science is real. So I'm just putting that up front so you know that you're in a trusted space. We're also live streaming right now on Substack and YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison, Cary spelled like the Cary Grant spelling, C-A-R-Y, Cary Harrison Substack or Cary Harrison YouTube. And that way we can stay connected when you arrive at your destination. You can also easily find the live video stream at kpfk.net. Just go to kpfk.net. And also don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at caryharrison.com. There you're going to get a transcript of this entire show, plus the great complexities that are going to be discussed. It'll all be in nice written form, including phone calls, and then we'll have some little mini clips that are going to be available all over the internet. So either way, you're not going to miss it, and that's our newsletter at caryharrison.com. Well, this is the anniversary of D-Day, and we see a very different Democratic Party than the one that launched us into victory over the Nazis many years ago. Under FDR, it was said, quote, "You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed people of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world." So let's talk about the recent DNC national gathering. This many years later, an opportunity so squandered, it makes Kafka look like a greeting card illustrator. If we wanted to sum up the opposition party in a few pithy words, we might say testosterone deficit theater, or public policy soft serve, civic droop, filibustered flesh, constitutionally incapable, wielding a rubber gavel, ideologically flaccid. How about power limp? Picture it. This time, our own nation teetering on the lip of autocracy, the founding ideals smoldering in the trash barrel behind Mar-a-Lago. And over at the Democratic National Committee, well, they hold a 3-hour meeting in Little Rock, Arkansas, like it's the Kiwanis Club deciding on what color napkins to use for their next pancake breakfast. Now, let me set the scene for you. The American experiment is dangling by a thread, one boot away from a full-blown autocratic face stomp. And where's the Democratic National Committee? They're holding a 3-hour seance for relevance. Yeah, the executive committee, allegedly the brains of the operation, finally meet for the first time since mid-December. That's 5 months of total radio silence while the country's been rerouted through a clown car driven by Mr. Musk and ghostwritten by Steve Bannon and his published plan, which suggests that we flood the news every second with mayhem. And boy, has that been working. The legacy media doesn't have the critical thinking skills to cut through the feint, using a fencing term, and get down to what's really happening. And what do these Democratic masterminds do with their long-awaited moment? Nothing. Nada. A performance so inert, so paralyzed, it made C-SPAN look like a Tarantino film. According to their own bylaws, God bless the comedy of rules that no one follows, the DNC is supposed to, quote, conduct the affairs of the party between full meetings. But what actually happened looked less like a strategy and more like a hostage negotiation with their own conscience. Pardon my sarcasm. I can't help it. I'm like 10 years old. You know that. Now, if you blinked, you probably missed all of this because aside from a website called Progressive Hub, nobody in national media bothered to cover it. Even Arkansas local news probably filed it between squirrel steals churro and weather still hot. Meanwhile, 7,000 people, most of them not under the influence, signed a petition begging for the full DNC to meet immediately. They said, and I quote, "Business as usual must give way to truly bold action." Bold action from the DNC? Asking the Democratic Party to take bold action is like asking a sloth to file your taxes during a house fire. You might get paperwork, you're not going to get urgency. Because while Mr. T and his merry band of autocratic tech bros are busy dismantling democracy with hedge fund precision, the DNC is stuck in a parallel dimension where messaging is action and resistance is a branded coffee mug. Thanks to Norman Solomon, one of the few voices and a frequent guest on the Cary Harrison File, as he put it perfectly, while democracy burns, the Democrats bring squirt guns, and not even pressurized ones. I'm talking dollar store, dribble on your shoes, squirt guns. But we do have some gatekeepers who are bringing us forward into this understanding and also offering some ideas on what you and I can do, because that's all I hear every day. So what do? I want to do something. What do I do? And, it's crickets on all the regular media. Just crickets. We're just going to throw more poison at you. Just have you turn off from the news cycle altogether. And so MSNBC has lost, 300,000 viewers. CNN is down 200,000. Fox News up 21% because it gives them calls to action. Horrible ones, maybe, but something they can do about it. On the side that isn't them, nothing to do about it. Just take your poison. And you know what? People can't take it. So today we welcome Sam Rosenthal. He's been on the show before. He attended the meeting, so you didn't have to. He looked into the abyss of the DNC leadership and came back fluent in committee speak, along other things, the official language of political extinction, or so it turns out. Sam Rosenthal showed up. He took notes. He stayed awake. And he is with Roots Action, an organization that we all have respected for well over a decade. And Sam Rosenthal, we want to welcome you.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Did you get a sense, Sam, that anyone in that room actually understands the scale of the threat to democracy right now?
Not particularly. What I saw was mostly proceduralism, business as usual, an attempt to kind of get through the business of the day for the DNC, some discussion of appointments, some discussion of new initiatives. But I didn't see anything that reflected the rhetoric we saw from the Democrats before the election, that this was an existential crisis we were heading into, that this was the defining election of our lifetimes, and that if Donald Trump won, it would be a total meltdown for democracy in the country.
And Sam Rosenthal, Roots Action, is more aligned with the Democratic Party. I guess it's, the only other one in the dance hall that's that you would want to dance with, let's just say. Yet somehow you have this acute awareness of what's going on. You haven't forgotten about it. What's your hypothesis on how the Democratic Party suddenly can't see it or doesn't wish to publicly see it?
I think that the Democratic Party is a very old institution that's used to running business in a very particular way. And the way that they run the show typically benefits seniority, benefits those who have patiently waited their turn to rise to the top. It's a hierarchical enterprise like any other one. It, is closer in form to a corporate organization than it is to maybe what you would be used to if you're a local community activist. And so I think that for them to totally overturn the way they've been doing business means that a lot of folks will lose out on positions they've waited decades to fill, maybe jobs that they've been climbing the ladder at. And that's just not tolerable to those who are inside the Democratic Party. So there's no incentive really for the actors inside of the party to do anything different to kind of turn the ship around here. And they don't hear much from voters. And I think that's by design. That's why the party does things like hold these important meetings in Little Rock, Arkansas, where there isn't much of a Democratic Party to speak of these days, instead of doing something like, holding a public meeting in New York or Los Angeles or in Atlanta, where they would have to face a lot of supporters.
Even big corporations like American Airlines, United, they still fly the planes. I mean, they still,
Right.
even though they still fly the planes, here they don't fly the planes. And it's been engineered, as you point out, and I never thought about this, to like disconnect the agitators, the voters, the constituency from the folks, enjoying hors d'oeuvres and the good life and that have waited their turns. Like you get an award for a cakewalk or musical chairs. And I mean, what can I say? You live in this world. I just look at it and want to, commit an act of emesis all over my shoes. But this is really real for all of us. And you speak to people in Roots Action who are like, damn it, do something. And, who's actually steering the Democratic ship right now? And is anyone even at the wheel? Like, is there hope?
I think that's one of the most glaring gaps that you see right now, is that there are different sort of small centers of power, but there isn't one figurehead who's uniting the party. It's very much a rudderless ship at the moment. Ken Martin's the new chair of the DNC. He's only been in that position for a few months, and he's talking a big game about reform, to be fair. He says that he's going to try to get dark money, corporate money out of Democratic primaries, which we would welcome at Roots Action. That would be a huge advancement for the Democratic Party if they earnestly did get dark money out of primaries. We've been clamoring for that for a long time, and many other progressive activists as well. But then, you have folks like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, who are in leadership positions in the Senate and in the House, but don't seem to really have control of the party more broadly. So there isn't one single leader. There isn't even a localized power center that people can look at for direction from the party. And a lot of the people who are in these current leadership positions are exactly those who have played the game for a long time, who have gone along to get along with the party. And we're clamoring for a different direction, for a new approach to things. And with this current, quote, leadership, I'm not sure we could really call it leadership, we aren't feeling optimistic that there's going to be a change in business as usual.
Wow. I mean, I'm speechless because this can't be happening, but it seems to be. With us is Sam Rosenthal, co-editor of Progressive Hub and political director of Roots Action. He was on the ground in Little Rock for the DNC's recent executive committee meeting, a gathering so uneventful, we find out, it could have been replaced with a voicemail. Sam is, sorry about my humor, I'm 10, I swear to God. Sam is here to help us decode what's really going on behind the curtain. Who's pulling the strings or not pulling the strings? Who's playing chicken with democracy and what it all means for the rest of us stuck here on Earth with working cell plans and rent payments yet to go. We find out that there's a giant disconnect between the giant party that everyone is imagining is supposed to be acting as the opposition, but without its having any direct tethering to the regular public, it simply can turn off its eardrums and be deaf. And meanwhile, people are going out of their minds. Sam, you see them. They're literally showing up at town halls, which aren't happening. They are happening. They're on TikTok going. I mean, I've seen beautiful performances on TikTok. It is wow, right? People are on fire and enraged and expecting this party to like snap to attention. And yet we have Chuck Schumer, who will pull his glasses down to the end of his nose and say he's terribly disappointed. Disappointment to me, Sam, is when your guest room in Nantucket, when the maid forgot to change the sheets for your summer guest. That's disappointing. This is some other level of outrage. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. In the run-up to this election, Democrats said that if we didn't defeat Donald Trump, if we didn't re-elect President Biden and then elect Kamala Harris, that this was going to be the end of democracy as we knew it. And we took them seriously. I took them seriously. I believe that. And I think that we've seen that actually Donald Trump and the group of neo-fascists around him are pretty intent on destroying the administrative state. They're intent on rolling back civil liberties. We don't know what's going to happen in 2026 and 2028. I don't know how optimistic we should be about free and fair elections in coming years. And so we took them very seriously. So to have the party about face and go back to business as usual after having really catastrophically thrown away this election in 2024 through a lot of, frankly, malfeasance on the end of the party is shocking to see. It's just, we don't feel on the ground as activists, we don't feel like this is a business as usual time. We feel like we are still in an emergency. The emergency they warned us about has come to pass. And what we want to see now is vigorous action. We want to see a plan. We want to see a not business as usual approach, but an all hands on deck, 5-alarm fire, whatever metaphor you'd like to use, style approach to combating and defeating Trumpism. And we don't see any of that right now.
Sam Rosenthal, in the second half of the show, I'm going to talk a little bit about Elon Musk having talked about creating a new political party, which he would fund and run and manage, I'm sure.
Sure.
But is it possible, I mean, from where you're sitting, is it possible for the Democrats or progressives to like break off and actually have a legitimate party that could do something?
It's possible, but it's a lot of work and a lot of money and many decades maybe of building up a party. The US is designed to be a duopoly. It's designed to be a country that's governed by two parties, and over many decades this has been entrenched. So you have all kinds of different impediments and barriers that I don't need to go into right now. They obtain at the national level, at the state level, sometimes even at the local level, that discourage folks from building a third party. There are a lot of people who currently are inside the Democratic Party, myself included, who are not really happy at all with the party's policies at the top level. We want to see a much more progressive policy. We want to see universal health care adopted as a standard for the party. We want to see a real attempt to bring down housing prices, a real attempt to make consumer goods more affordable, not just lip service that triangulates with what corporations want. We think corporations are the enemies of working people, and we want a party that says so. But at the same time, it's very difficult to imagine that you could break off from the Democratic Party, build a progressive party, for example, and be relevant in short order or even in the medium term. There are a lot of barriers pushing against that. And that's why people like me still do the majority of our work trying to organize around the Democratic Party, if not within the Democratic Party, to push it in a more progressive direction. Sometimes that's, a dialectical approach. Sometimes it's a much more forceful push to the left, but we need more people to join that effort if we want to try to do that. If people want to break off and try to form their own party, I think that's a great idea, but I would encourage them to first take a look at some of the barriers that they'll run into, at least in the short term.
Cary Harrison with you. We're live streaming right now on Substack and YouTube, as well as anything else with a chip and a signal, plus available on any podcast platform after the fact. You can simply Google Cary Harrison Substack, Cary spelled like Cary Grant, C-A-R-Y, or YouTube. And that way we stay connected when you arrive at your destination. You can easily find us live streaming video at kpfk.net. Just go to kpfk.net. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at CaryHarrison.com. There you're going to get a transcript of our conversation right now with Sam Rosenthal, plus some clips and other stuff that we can't do any longer on the radio. Sam Rosenthal, co-editor of Progressive Hub, political director of Roots Action. And Sam, the sort of obvious thing is, how long can this current Democratic Party keep pretending this is business as usual before their base simply walks out?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Recent polling has shown that the Democratic Party is at its lowest favorability level for at least the last few decades, probably farther back than that. We think that the party needs to have an honest reckoning with what it's gone through over the last 4 years. And going back really to 2016, we've seen the party repeatedly put its thumb on the scale in presidential primaries to get a candidate it wants at the top of the ticket, if not necessarily the candidate that voters seem to be attracted to. We saw what was tantamount to obfuscation, maybe tantamount to a cover-up around President Biden's condition heading into his re-election campaign, which he then hastily handed off to Kamala Harris, who wasn't prepared to run for president and was completely hobbled by the party's insistence that she maintain Biden's policy lines on every matter. So we think that first we want to see the Democratic Party have an honest, open reckoning about what has been business as usual over the last 8 years. And farther back than that, we want the party to speak to voters, talk about some of its inadequacies, some of its shortcomings, and the ways that it has manipulated politics internally to suppress progressive voices. And before that happens, I really don't see a way that the party can rebuild its credibility with the voters, with its base, who again is the Democratic Party's base should be working class people, people of color, young people, people who care about progressive policy. The Democratic Party should stop trying to pivot to the suburbs, pivot to people who, in years past would have been kind of moderate Republican voters. It's bad politics and there aren't enough votes there. So we want to see the party get back to its roots, get back to building a big coalition of working people, and try to honestly contest elections and stop trying to please its donor class while at the same time saying to voters, this is the best we can do right now.
Sam Rosenthal, did anyone actually bring up Trump? He happens to be president of the United States, e pluribus unum, the most powerful man in the world with, 12,500 multi-tip thermonuclear weapons, able to levy tariffs, whether Congress says yes or no, do basically whatever he wants. Was he brought up as a blemish on the soft skin of possibility?
Not particularly. This was a meeting that was mostly about what a good job the Democratic Party is doing, all the innovative new initiatives they have that they're launching that are sure to buoy the party's fortunes. Some of the stuff is good. As I said, we're in favor of getting dark money out of politics if Chair Martin is earnest about that. We're in favor of more funding for state parties for building grassroots activity. But at the same time, the response has to be commensurate with our current conditions, and it just is not so far. We believe that we are in a crisis moment. We believe we may have nothing left of our country after the end of these 4 years, and we need to see a real opposition party that does just that opposes the president, not one that sort of complains insofar as it gets them donor dollars, but doesn't have plans to do anything beyond that.
So the average person who really does want to do something and is just screaming at you, what can I do? What can I do? Just as I hear it every day. What is your assessment as what can people do that it's going to really help and matter from your standpoint?
There are a lot of things folks can do. I mean, getting involved locally is always a good idea. There's lots of advances that we've seen from the progressive end being made at state and local legislatures over the last 8 or 10 years. And often the people who are in those bodies pass legislation that has a bigger impact in people's day to day. So that's a good place to start. But you should also call your congressperson, if they're a member of the Democratic Party, tell them you're unhappy with the level of activity you see from the party right now. Tell them you want urgency, you want real fight. And by the way, tell them that you are a progressive voter. You believe in Medicare for all. You believe that no one in this country should be out on the street because they don't make $600,000 a year or whatever it is. And finally, if you know a DNC member, if you know someone who's local in their state Democratic Party, tell them how you feel. There are many, many people who get involved in Democratic Party politics. They receive far fewer calls than Congress people do because they're relatively anonymous. But you can find lists of these people's names online. If you have a state Democratic Party that's very active, you can find their names too. And you should reach out to these people. They don't receive a lot of calls. They'll be surprised to hear from you, and you might be able to really influence what's happening there if you reach out to them.
There's an organization in Florida, which is probably the template for what things will look like if it continues to go in that direction. It's pretty much already solidified and happened in the state of Florida. Equality Florida. And they're similar to Equality California or the Human Rights Campaign. And they have been able to defeat, you sort of wouldn't know it, but it could be a lot worse if you can imagine such a thing. But they've been able to defeat 21 of 22 anti-LGBT bills. And they simply did it by showing up. And it only took 100 people to show up, and these bills died in committee. And so I think a lot of us don't really realize the sort of simple things you can do, which is physically show up and just have your presence there. And there isn't enough bravery for someone to push something through and it just kind of fizzles out on the floor. So 100 people have defeated 21 different out of 22 bills that were so horrendous, so unconscionable. That could happen around the country if people knew they just show up. And you show up, Sam, and you're on with us. You're the only reason we know about what happened at this because you physically showed up. So there's a whole lot to democracy about physically participating.
Absolutely. The thing that folks have to remember is that these right-wing policies, these neo-fascist policies, they're really unpopular. Most people in this country don't want these things to pass into law, and that they thrive on silence, they thrive on anonymity. If you just shine a light on what's happening at the national level, at the local level, as you say, if you get 100 people to show up, suddenly you deprive these things of oxygen. These incredibly heinous, incredibly damaging policies that sometimes go into law for decades. Well, we might live with them for decades. All you have to do is muster a small group of people who are willing to say, we want this to stop, or we won't allow this to continue. And many of these efforts will wither. This is not what the majority of people in this country want to see happen. And we will only succumb to this kind of fascistic minority rule if we continue to do nothing and say nothing. And as long as we can keep showing up, keep making our voices heard, and encouraging people who have power, who have levers they can pull around us, to pull those levers, to be brave, to not hide from the voters, we can defeat this moment that we're in right now, and we can realize a more progressive vision for the future. But we do have to be active. We have to get out there and do something.
What a great way to end. Sam Rosenthal, how do we follow you?
You can go to rootsaction.org to see all of our latest campaigns.
All right. With us has been Sam Rosenthal, co-editor of Progressive Hub and political director of Roots Action. He was on the ground in Little Rock for the DNC's recent executive committee meeting. And I'm not going to comment on that. I think you got the point. He's been here to help us decode what was really going on behind the curtain, who's pulling the string, who's in charge of democracy on that side, and what we can do to create an advantage on a very weird, angled playing field that makes no sense to anybody. But suit up and show up. Those are the marching orders. Suit up and show up, and things will actually happen. Coming up, Elon Musk, tech messiah, meme warlord, and part-time Martian, says he might start his own political party. Because when your electric car company's in free fall and your space rockets are on back order, why not try running Earth? Will it be the Hyperloop Party? The Church of Free Speech and SEC violations? Well, we're going to dig into what Musk's fantasy faction could look like, who it might steal voters from, and whether it's more likely to launch a candidate or just a podcast. Cary Harrison with you. It is the Cary Harrison Files.
This pussy grabs back. The Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
Well, it's still legal.
The Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files. Cary Harrison with you, reminding you that we are live streaming on YouTube, Substack, X, formerly known as Twitter, really everything else with a chip and a signal. Simply Google Cary Harrison, Cary spelled like Cary Grant, and whatever the streaming platform you want, you'll be able to see it. You can also very simply go to kpfk.net, and there you're going to get some live stuff, I think, on the YouTube version of things. Plus, don't forget to get our newsletter at caryharrison.com. There you're going to get a complete transcript of the conversation we just had with Sam Rosenthal of Roots Action, where he breaks down exactly who and what the Democratic Party is right now and answers the question of why they've been somnambulistic during a house fire, shooting squirt guns that aren't even pressurized or doing absolutely nothing. There's an actual reason. And he explained what that is and also what you can do about it, since everyone wants to know, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Paula Latham asks me on YouTube, no, Facebook, are you okay? I'm not sure why. Hope you're having a great show. Here's another one from David. Hope you're having a great show today. Glad you're live. Bring that back to the listeners when you're done agitating the powers that be. Yes. So it'll all be in the newsletter. Thank you so much. Well, let's do a little romantic moment here. Once upon a time, and we're going to open up the phones too, by the way. Your Harrison hotlines, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. I want your mental orchestra to fire up. I want you to play a little music in the background in your mind, because once upon a time in the not so distant past, Donald Trump and Elon Musk were the power couple of American politics and innovation. Mr. Musk, the self-proclaimed Martian overlord, found a kindred spirit in Mr. Trump, the self-proclaimed stable genius. Together, they embarked on a journey to make America great again, one tax cut and rocket launch at a time. Musk even took the helm of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, a bureaucratic experiment that promised to trim the fat but ended up slicing through essential services like a machete-wielding maniac. The bromance was strong, with Musk's companies benefiting from government contracts and Trump's administration basking in the glow of Silicon Valley's golden boy. But alas, all good things must come to an end. The honeymoon phase soured when Musk dared to criticize Trump's one big, beautiful bill, a fiscal monstrosity that ballooned the deficit while slashing EV incentives. Mr. Musk, whose fortune is tethered to the success of electric vehicles, saw red. Mr. T, never one to take criticism lightly, responded with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. He threatened to revoke Mr. M's government contracts, including those with NASA, with the military, with everything else, like at least 12 different branches of giant government, the largest government on Earth. The bromance turned into a brawl, with both parties exchanging barbs on social media platforms. Mr. T on Truth Social and Mr. M on X, formerly known as Twitter. The market reacted as one would expect, with two influential figures engaging in a public spat. Tesla's stock plummeted by 14%, erasing $150 billion in market capitalization. Mr. T's media ventures weren't spared either, with shares dropping 8%, costing him millions in paper losses. It's as if the stock market collectively facepalmed at their antics. Now, Mr. M is hinting at forming a new political party, appealing to centrists disillusioned with both major parties. In the end, this feud serves as a cautionary tale of what happens when personal vendettas overshadow public service. It's a reminder that when billionaires bicker, it's the average citizen who often bears the brunt of the fallout, be it through market instability, policy paralysis, or the erosion of trust in institutions. The only institutions we happen to trust now are mental institutions. If Elon Musk were actually able to establish a third party, would you go for it after the Democrats' listlessness and the Republicans' avarice? But would it be certainly financed and controlled? Well, duh. But would it be better than the two options that we're currently seeing right now? Is this feud, in your opinion, purely a distraction, a divorce of convenience, or a legitimate ideological split? And if Mr. M did start his own political party, would you take it seriously, or would you rather let SpaceX shoot it straight to the sun? Well, important questions. Not particularly easy answers, but I know you have them because this is your country and you get to have it the way you want because you are the government and the government is your cleaning lady. You hire it to fill potholes. You hire it to pave the streets. You hire it to basically ensure the nuclear power plants because no private company is ever going to take that level of risk. So it does the things you can't do yourself, and it does the things larger than you as an individual named Timmy. So what do you see if a new party were started? And we heard from Sam Rosenthal that trying to start a new one, it is possible, but this country is now built to have two parties. You could create a third one, but you and I would never be able to do it. Musk, on the other hand, has the wealth to probably call one into existence one way or the other and take votes from both parties into a third party that he might control. Would that be a worthwhile risk if you're so soured on choice A and choice B, which are the limitations we have? 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Those are your Harrison hotlines, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. I'm going to bring on the great Renee, or Ray, as we like to call her, because she is not only our fabulous directress, but she is a brilliant mind, able to analyze things so well. And I don't want to be the lone thinker or the lone voice on this. Plus, this is a very male-oriented show, which is so not the way we want to see the future. I would love to get your take, Ray, on what you think. Is this real, this bromance breaking up? Or is it a feint, as we would use in fencing terms? Or could this possibly slow down the Senate's acceptance of the big, beautiful bill, which not only wipes out health insurance for 18 million people, it literally takes away enforcement from the judiciary. In other words, if the Supreme Court says you can't do not press the red button, if you do, you're going to be punished. It takes away their part to say, or you'll be punished. It takes away the lower courts making decisions that can be enforced. It puts it into law and changes things forever until that's ever undone, if it ever it is. These are the big pieces that are not discussed. We're just talking about ballooning the deficit. Great. How does that affect you, really? Do you even know what it means? Maybe not. So we're going to jump to the phones in just a second as they tee up. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Ray, would love to get your quickie on this, if you would.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you talked about fainting because remember, Trump is basically at his heart a performance artist. He is a grifter. He's P.T. Barnum. He's a reality TV star. This is what he actually likes to do, is to get attention and to use the public forums. And he does a lot of fainting, even by his own admissions. He says, a lot of times I say things because people don't know if I'm crazy or what I'm doing. And then you have Elon Musk, who really was starved for attention for his early life and neglected. And he deeply, deeply wants friends. He wants people to like him. He needs attention.
He's like Sally Field.
You like me. You really like me. I mean, look at him. Just look at him. So I do take things with a grain of salt. I think that even though all of us in our hearts wanted this bromance to dissolve, I'm not sure that we should get too many expectations up. A lot of it might be cloak and dagger, switching things around. A lot of it is a magic trick. So myself, I'm not allowing myself to get too enthusiastic quite yet. I think that these two men are deeply intentional about how they ride the vibrations of media, social media, and they are trying. I think they're both in on it in some way, shape, or form. And as with all performance art, there's probably a grain of truth, but I don't trust myself to have enough data or analytics to really understand what's going on behind the scenes. So I think we all should be skeptical. We all should think about our own interests. And that's why I love what you were talking about with Sam about what we can do, because at the end of the day, these guys are going to do what they're going to do. And we have a country to run because it's our country.
Well, beautifully well put. Thank you so much. All in a nutshell and laser focused. I tend to think it's a bit of a feint too. That's spelled FEINT. It's radio. You can't read it, so I'm just going to spell it. Billionaires bickering and doing it on social media. You know, when people get divorced and hate each other, they're advised, don't publish it on Facebook. It's going to blow back on you, and there's going to be 1,000 ways that they can get back at you because they can demonstrate or prove and just make it up out of thin air, whatever. There it is. There's the evidence. And because everything really hangs in the balance, if all of this is true, to like barf it all out on social media just creates a special design that really is not going to benefit either side, unless the benefit is all of us to get caught up as this bill is looking to get passed that changes life as you know it. The big one, there's a couple of big ones in here. One is that the judiciary no longer can make a law, make a rule, and it's not enforceable. That's it. They can say, no, you have to stop deporting people, and it means nothing. It's in this bill. 2, 18 million people. And which of those 18 is it? Is it you? Is it your mother? Is it someone you know? They're not named. But about 18 million people lose their health care permanently. Medicaid goes bye-bye. And, you know, most red states can't even afford to pave the roads. So all of that, you've got to pay for these giant tax cuts. That's what the tariffs do, don't they? The tariffs mean prices go up and you, the customer, the consumer, pay that extra amount. That extra revenue comes in to balance the loss of revenue that the tax cuts give the billionaires. So you're going to pay. Boy, are you going to pay. And if you don't know what's in this bill, you're going to pay twice as much. So this kind of theatrics may allow the Senate just to pull out their rubber gavel and go bang without all the public scrutiny, all the people about to lose, life-saving medicine. Medicaid is not for people who could use a leg up. It's for people, you may have children or relatives with everything from Down syndrome to being somewhere on the spectrum, people who just don't have the same advantage. It's just a biological fact. That's why we have this, so that complete and utter chaos and calamity don't happen. We're seeing complete, utter, and chaos and calamity happen through USAID. We see 1,500, that's 1,500 babies a day are now born with HIV because of these cuts. Born with. We see 300 people a day now dying of HIV in sub-Saharan Africa. We haven't even begun to see the tidal wave of horrific new viruses and other things being loosed into the environment by Mother Nature itself, things we could contain. Polio that you and I never had to think about, that's coming back. All of this stuff. And this bill codifies and magnifies every possible permutation. That's why it's the big, beautiful bill, because it has all the bells and whistles in it. And if it's not able to be scrutinized because we're busy gossiping over, his hairdo and he eats this and he hates that and he doesn't like so-and-so's aftershave, we're not paying attention to the big prize. All right, let's go to the phones at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Say hello to Jill from Long Beach here on the Cary Harrison Files. Welcome.
Oh, hi. I want to thank you so much for bringing attention to this bill. Because to me, it's part of educating everybody. The saddest thing to me is that I believe that the American people have a lot of power. And I believe because of our present system and the way that we're educated in corporate media, we don't know that, but we do. And so my thing is just, educating people about the power that they do have. And I think that I believe that the current two-party system is completely broken. And I believe that the only thing that has ever changed something when things get this bad is a nationally organized progressive movement like the one that Martin Luther King led. And I believe that we're to that point. So that's the only thing I think that's going to stop the oligarchs that run our country and much of the world. That's all I want to say. But thank you for pointing out what's in the bill. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Jill. Very much appreciate your call. That opens up a line at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. We're looking at the big, beautiful bill. We're looking at this bromance. Is it a feint? Is it a fake? Is it a giant, dramatic distraction? Sure. They don't love each other in the way that you think. One of them is the funder of the other. And if you're in a nonprofit sector and you have a major donor, you probably have lunch with them. Maybe they're at your dinner party and other fundraisers. And boy, are you on your best behavior 100% of the time. And maybe you don't like them personally, but maybe they fund your entire operation. It's probably that kind of relationship. But nothing happens in this administration that is not theatrical. And so much of it is invisible. And it's meant to be that way. So I'm just not convinced how real anything is. And it will play out. I mean, we saw a social media post today, in fact, from the White House saying, I'm not ready to kiss and make up yet. Where did that come from? Why was that necessary? Who was saying that you even should? So these are the kind of contrivances. And here we are in Hollywood. We write reality TV. We unscripted shows, unscripted in giant air quotes, where you actually know how long the segment is, when the commercials air, how long the commercials are, and how it's going to end so you can have the next episode. But let's just say unscripted. We know the plot of the play. We write this stuff. This is Bill Shakespeare in modern times. So I would love to hear from some Hollywood folks. What do you see this as? Does this feel like a contrived, concocted something? And what would be your made-up plot line here? Give me the log line of how this thing ends. 818-985-KPFK. What is the point of all of this? Where do you see it ending up in your wildest zombie Hollywood version of dystopia? Where do you see this going? Because unlike most people, we don't live 24/7 in writing, creating, fantasizing about dystopia. We live it, we hate it, but there are people who, make a living out of this, imagining all the wild permutations of how things could go south. I'd love to get that insight of people who are creatives who can see where this stuff starts and where it might end. I would love to have that analysis at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, as we look at this unfolding tragedy. Now, tragedy for you and me, because the more it happens, the less we are able to focus and pay attention. We heard from Sam Rosenthal that the Democratic Party that did hold this, and this is D-Day, right? So the Democratic Party of, 88 years ago, was a party led by FDR. And as Jill called in and said, it's time for a giant progressive move. And FDR and his wife did exactly that. Gave us so so many different programs that never existed before. And I remember asking my grandmother, she was in her 90s at the time. I said, well, what did you think when these programs came along in the 1930s? She said, we couldn't believe it. We literally couldn't believe it. I was expecting her to say, it's the slippery road to socialism. No. She said, we couldn't believe that the government would do anything for us. And we loved it. The whole nation rallied around it. Because if you think about it fiscally, which is the excuse that people that love to imagine they're conservative, fiscally, you're putting your tax money in, you're getting it back. Oh, it's circular. It's recycling to your benefit. There's no problem. People don't mind paying for something if you get something for that payment. It's when you pay and it goes to nowhere. Europeans may complain about high taxes, but look at their quality of life. And maybe you haven't been to Europe in a while. The most beautiful modern railways, organic food that's delicious, trim, fit, people smiling and laughing, eating in cafes. This is not some French postcard. This is their real life with many, many months of vacations, and they make a profit. When they retire, they never get kicked onto the sidewalk. The money they've been paying into their Social Security comes back and helps fund their retirement more than just, $800 a month. It helps with their rent. It helps with their medicine. Their medicine is all you can eat throughout their lifetimes, and they pay for that, and they live well. If you could have a plebiscite, everyone did thumbs up and thumbs down, how do you think people would vote? Great quality of life, health care for all, happiness, great education, able to speak a few languages, able to travel where your cleaning lady can even go to Mallorca. Really a clean, happy, healthier way of life without harassment and endless depression and obesity because we're eating our feelings away. All that goes away. And public transportation, so you don't have to drive everywhere and pay $600 a month in car insurance, depending where you live. Climate change is real, so we're going to look to mitigate that. Thumbs up, thumbs down, good idea. What do you think is going to happen? Exactly as Sam Rosenthal said. This stuff happens in the dark, and that's how they get away with it. If it's in the light, nobody wants it. So our chance to shine some light on it. Let's go to Harold from Santa Barbara. Harold, you're on the Cary Harrison Files.
Hey, this is a great show. I really appreciate your sense of humor, and your guest was amazing. I'm still, well, I'm not saying I'm dumb. I'm just dumbfounded. And more than that, I think this is beautiful. I mean, perfect timing. You got to cover up that those people that are on that Sinbad voyage to try to get food to Palestine. Wow, they got to do something. And this faint notion, that's pretty good. You're pretty good today.
Well, I appreciate your call, my friend. Thank you. And you're pretty good today, too. Thank you so much, Harold. That opens up a line at 818-985-KPFK. And Ray, you just popped up a lower third coming in from one of the social media services. We are live streaming right now on Substack, on YouTube, on everything with a chip and a signal. Simply Google Cary Harrison, C-A-R-Y, like Cary Grant spelling, and you'll find whatever it is. This one is coming from YouTube, from Kareem. Trump dumped Elon because Trump already achieved his main objective of becoming richer than everyone he knows with his false flag decoy of false flag tariffs, disguised as economic miracles. Well, ain't that the truth? He's made $1 billion in crypto in just 100 days, or maybe it's a little longer. Maybe it's a year, but basically $1 billion. There's another billion to come and another billion. So, yeah, any other president, if Nixon's wife receiving a Vicunian coat in the 1950s was enough to have him almost kicked out of office. Europeans that tell a single lie get the bump. We have the Hatch Act, which means government officials are not allowed to receive gifts except a $300 or $400 million airplane. I mean, how is this? And yes, you're all screaming, but where do you go? And that seems to be the big constipation that everyone is suffering right now. Where do you go? Sam Rosenthal reminded us that you just call your local congressman. Local does not mean necessarily your national, but your state congressman, your state senator. Start with them. You can go on the web, you can go online, you can find the website. It'll have their local phone number, and say you are a progressive, if you are, and that you don't like the way this is going and you would like them to represent you, else you will not vote for them in the upcoming election, and that you want to be properly represented. Start with your local congresspeople, your local senators, then go for your nationals. Go with the party, whatever party it is that you think is going to listen to you. You never know. In the state of Florida, the red state of Florida, a guy named David Jolly, a former Republican, is now going to run for governor as a Democrat to replace Ron DeSantis. And it's huge because he's actually a really decent guy. So we're beginning to see a lot of interesting movement. The key will be how much power does it have, and how meaningful are these midterm elections? I hate to say, dare I say it, if they're allowed to happen. But he's confident they will, and a lot of other people are confident they will. But it's up to you to make sure that happens. Here's another message coming in from YouTube. 1961 to 1968, thus committing the history's gravest wealth heist without firing a single bullet, as Trump admitted on camera. I think this is a state bill, maybe, or I can't tell. It says dollar signs. 1961 to 68. Market crashes were expected. It's time to get rich. It's the best. Yes. I remember that. If only you knew what to invest in. If you could just make that public and just let the American public know now is a good time to buy $20 of X, there'd probably be less squawking because it would be, shared across the platform, but it never is. Another message, time to buy, all because his team engineered the crashes and got ultra rich from this RICO crime fraud, several times richer than Musk, who is now pissed at him for having been double crossed. Well, for sure. All of this, we may have to look back in the history books if historians haven't all fled to Toronto by then. But this is where you come in. It is your democracy. It is your country. You are the rightful owner by the Constitution still today. You have the opportunity to slow down this one big, beautiful bill if you don't love it, and call your local congressman, your local senators, your national congressmen, your national senators, and voice your opinion. Because if you don't, it's on you. Who keeps voting the same Democrats in year after year? They don't self-vote. So that's enough out of me this week. I love you. I love hanging out with you. I really appreciate spending all this good time with you. Don't forget, you can get our newsletter at CaryHarrison.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week here on the Cary Harrison Files.
Smells like fish. Tastes like chocolate.
It's the